Have you ever stopped to wonder about the most mysterious beings in the Bible? These aren't your typical stories of good versus evil or faith triumphing over trials. No, these are the hidden gems of Scripture, the beings whose existence challenges our understanding of the divine and sparks a curiosity that refuses to be ignored. From celestial creatures to colossal beasts, the Bible's pages hold secrets that have puzzled theologians for centuries. But let's face it, many of us read these accounts and brush them off as symbolic or purely metaphorical. What if they're not? What if these beings are part of a grand design, offering us glimpses of God's power, creativity, and plan for humanity? Understanding them could unlock a new level of insight into the Bible and, perhaps, into your own spiritual journey. Aren't you just a little curious about what they reveal? And here's the kicker. These beings aren't just mysterious, they're deeply relevant to us today. They offer lessons on humility, trust, and purpose that are just as applicable now as they were thousands of years ago. So, buckle up, because what you're about to discover might just reshape how you view Scripture, and your place within God's story. Have you ever wondered about the 24 elders seated around God's throne in the book of Revelation? They're not just a random assembly. Their presence represents something profound, often interpreted as the church itself, redeemed, victorious, and crowned with glory. Picture their golden crowns, glinting under the heavenly light, each symbolizing the righteousness of Christ bestowed upon his followers. It's like receiving an eternal award for running life's race with perseverance. Now, think about those white robes. They're not just garments, they're a declaration. A declaration that these elders have been washed clean by the blood of the Lamb. Imagine it like wearing a badge of honor that screams, "I am redeemed." And this isn't just for them, this righteousness is available to anyone who walks in faith. How would it feel to stand in such purity, knowing every stain of sin has been erased? Let's dig deeper. Why 24 elders? Many scholars believe the number reflects the unification of the 12 tribes of Israel and the 12 apostles, Old and New Testament believers united before God. Think about that for a moment, a complete family reunion spanning generations, standing as living proof of God's faithfulness through time. Isn't it comforting to know you're part of a divine plan that spans eternity? But here's the kicker, these elders don't just sit there passively. They worship. They fall down and cast their crowns before the throne, acknowledging that all glory belongs to God. That act is a powerful reminder that everything we achieve, every victory, every accolade, is ultimately His. Have you ever considered what crown you might lay down before Him one day? In practical terms, this vision challenges us to examine what we prioritize. Are we living for crowns that tarnish, or for eternal rewards? Maybe it's time to evaluate where you're investing your energy. Think of it as shifting from chasing temporary thrills to pursuing a legacy that lasts forever. How might your daily decisions change with eternity in mind? And then there's the aspect of humility. Even these elders, glorified and crowned, bow down. It's a profound lesson that no matter how exalted we become, our rightful posture before God is one of reverence. Maybe it's a good day to practice gratitude and humility in your own life. Start small, thank someone, acknowledge their role in your journey. Humility, after all, keeps us grounded. The imagery of the 24 elders also gives us a glimpse of heavenly worship, a scene so vibrant it almost pulsates with life. It's an invitation to reflect on how we worship here on earth. Are we holding back, or are we fully engaged, like those elders? Next Sunday, maybe try singing a little louder or praying a little deeper, get lost in the moment. Now, here's a curious thought, if these elders represent humanity, then their actions might just be a foretaste of our eternal role. Worship, crowns, robes, and all, it's a glimpse into a future where God's omnipresence reigns supreme. Speaking of glimpses into divine mysteries, let's take a turn to Ezekiel's vision of wheels within wheels. What could those strange, almost mechanical images teach us about God's boundless nature? Ezekiel's vision of wheels within wheels is one of the Bible's most mysterious and thought-provoking images. Imagine a colossal structure, wheels spinning independently yet interconnected, glowing with an otherworldly radiance. Some have even likened it to gyroscopic technology, but its true meaning goes far beyond mechanics. This vision is a powerful symbol of God's omnipresence, reminding us that He is everywhere, in every moment, guiding all creation. The wheel's movement in any direction without turning is a fascinating detail. It speaks to God's ability to move seamlessly through time and space, unbound by the limitations we face. Picture driving a car that can move forward, backward, or sideways without needing to pivot. Wouldn't that revolutionize how we travel? Now, apply that concept spiritually. God's guidance doesn't require detours or delays. His presence is instant and perfect. Each wheel was full of eyes, a striking image that might feel eerie at first. But those eyes represent God's all-seeing nature. There's no corner of the universe hidden from His sight, no secret too obscure. Think of it this way, you're never out of God's radar. While that might feel intimidating, it's also incredibly comforting. You're fully seen and fully known, even in your most vulnerable moments. Let's bring this down to a personal level. The idea of being fully known means God understands your struggles, your fears, and your dreams. Ever feel like no one truly gets you? Well, Ezekiel's wheels suggest otherwise. This vision is a divine assurance that you're not navigating life's complexities alone. God's omniscience means He's already mapped out the solutions you need, you just have to trust His timing. The wheels also align with the four living creatures, each moving in perfect harmony. This synchronicity demonstrates God's order amidst chaos. Think about the times your life feels disjointed, like everything spinning out of control. What if, instead, you saw those moments as part of a larger design, orchestrated by a God who never misses a beat? Sometimes, all it takes is a shift in perspective. The radiance of these wheels, described as sparkling like beryl, hints at their divine origin. Imagine something so stunningly beautiful yet deeply intimidating, a reflection of God's majesty. It's a reminder that God's presence isn't mundane, it's extraordinary. Maybe it's time to pause and recognize the beauty in everyday moments that reflect His glory, a sunrise, a kind word, or even a breakthrough after a tough season. This vision isn't just a metaphor, it's a call to trust in God's perfect control. The wheels turning within wheels illustrate that even when life feels confusing, God's plan is never derailed. Are you facing a situation that seems tangled and unsolvable? Remember Ezekiel's vision. God's oversight is never limited by human logic. Trust Him to untangle the threads. As we ponder these remarkable wheels, their symbolism opens our eyes to the infinite nature of God's wisdom and guidance. It's a vision that sparks awe and a deeper sense of faith. But if you think wheels are strange, wait until we explore the colossal beasts described in the book of Job. Behemoth and Leviathan might just change how you view God's power altogether. The book of Job introduces two awe-inspiring creatures, Behemoth and Leviathan. These colossal beings aren't your average animals, they're living metaphors for God's unmatched power and sovereignty. Behemoth, often associated with a mighty land creature like a hippopotamus or elephant, is described as the chief of God's ways. Imagine its strength, its sheer presence, embodying the limits of human understanding before the Creator's wisdom. Behemoth's tail sways like a cedar tree, a poetic detail that challenges us to see nature as more than just scenery, it's a testament to God's creative genius. Next time you see a powerful storm or a towering mountain, think of Behemoth. It's a reminder that no matter how much we advance as humans, there are things only God can command and create. When was the last time you paused to marvel at creation? Now, Leviathan is a whole different story. This aquatic creature is a symbol of chaos, ferocity, and untamed strength. Picture a creature so fearsome that no spear or sword can pierce its armor like scales. Some say it's a crocodile, others believe it's more mythical, a dragon of the sea. Either way, Leviathan's description forces us to confront our own vulnerability. Who among us can stand against such power? Yet, For God, Leviathan is like a pet on a leash. These creatures, though terrifying, serve a comforting purpose. They highlight human limitations and, in doing so, magnify God's sovereignty. It's like staring into the vastness of the ocean. You feel small, but that smallness also connects you to something infinite. Maybe that's the key, embracing our limits to see God's boundless strength. Could this perspective shift how you approach challenges? Let's make it practical. When Job was overwhelmed by suffering, God brought up these creatures not to intimidate but to reframe Job's perspective. The message? If I can control Behemoth and Leviathan, surely I can handle your struggles. What's the Leviathan in your life, an issue too big for you to manage alone? Perhaps it's time to trust God's strength instead of leaning on your own. And let's not miss the humor. Imagine Job, a man in deep anguish, hearing about a monstrous sea creature. It's almost like God saying, "You think your problems are big? Look at Leviathan." Sometimes, a little perspective is all we need to lighten the load. When life feels overwhelming, could you step back and see the bigger picture God is painting? These descriptions aren't just for Job, they're for us. They're a call to stop underestimating God. Behemoth and Leviathan are like divine megaphones, shouting, "God is bigger." Next time you feel stuck, take a moment to reflect on their power. Maybe read Job 40 and 41 again, imagining the creatures in vivid detail. Let their majesty remind you of God's ultimate authority. As we leave these mighty creatures behind, their lessons linger: humility before God and trust in His control. But the Bible doesn't stop with beasts, it takes us higher, introducing celestial beings with roles as sacred as they are mysterious. Cherubim and seraphim are up next, and their story might just redefine how you view the spiritual realm. Cherubim and seraphim, just their names evoke an aura of mystery and reverence. These celestial beings are not your typical angels. Cherubim, with their multi-faced appearances and fiery wheels, guard sacred spaces, like the entrance to Eden after the fall. Imagine them as divine sentinels, reminding humanity that some things are too holy to be approached casually. Their role? To protect the sanctity of God's presence. Then there are the seraphim, whose very name means, burning ones. These beings dwell so close to God's throne that their entire existence radiates His glory. Picture them, their 6 wings in motion, 2 covering their faces, 2 covering their feet, and 2 for flight, crying out, "Holy, holy, holy." Their song reverberates through eternity, a constant declaration of God's purity and majesty. Can you imagine being so close to such overwhelming holiness? Cherubim play a fascinating role in the tabernacle and the temple, where their golden forms adorned the Ark of the Covenant. These weren't just decorative statues, they symbolized God's mercy seat, the very place where His presence would dwell. Think of it as a heavenly embassy on earth. It's like having a direct line to the divine, but only accessible through proper reverence and faith. How do you approach God today, with casualness or awe? Seraphim, on the other hand, bring a deeply personal element to their role. Remember Isaiah's vision? One of these burning beings touched his lips with a live coal, purging his sin and preparing him for his prophetic mission. This act shows us that proximity to God doesn't just inspire, it transforms. Are there areas in your life where you need a burning coal moment, a cleansing to step into your calling? Let's pause and reflect on the practical takeaway. These beings teach us the balance between God's transcendence and His approachability. Cherubim remind us to guard the sacred in our lives, like our faith, relationships, or even time with God. What's one thing you could protect better this week? Meanwhile, seraphim inspire us to seek transformation, not through our strength but by allowing God's fire to refine us. Interestingly, these beings are also a reminder of God's perfect order. Cherubim and seraphim fulfill their roles without hesitation, reflecting complete submission to God's will. It's a challenge for us to embrace our own roles with similar faithfulness. What if you approached your responsibilities with the same sense of divine purpose? Imagine how that mindset could transform your work, relationships, or ministry. And here's a thought: if these beings, so majestic and close to God, are devoted entirely to Him, what does that say about our priorities? Maybe it's time to realign. Perhaps start small, spend a few extra minutes in prayer or worship this week, intentionally acknowledging God's holiness. Little shifts can create profound changes over time. As we move from these heavenly beings to another mysterious figure, the transition is seamless. Who is Melchizedek, and why does his story hold such profound significance? Let's dive into the narrative of this enigmatic priest and king. Melchizedek, his very name sparks intrigue. Mentioned only briefly in Scripture, he stands as one of the Bible's most enigmatic figures. A king of Salem and a priest of the Most High God, Melchizedek appears suddenly in Genesis, blessing Abraham after a victorious battle. Without genealogy or lineage, his story seems almost mythical. But here's the twist: he's a living symbol of Christ's eternal priesthood, bridging the gap between heaven and earth. His dual role as king and priest is fascinating. In ancient times, these roles rarely overlapped, yet Melchizedek embodies both seamlessly. As king of Salem, meaning peace, and priest of God, he foreshadows Christ, the Prince of Peace and our High Priest. Imagine a leader who governs with wisdom and intercedes with compassion. That's the ideal, isn't it? How might we strive for such balance in our own lives? Consider his offering of bread and wine to Abraham. These elements resonate deeply, pointing forward to the Last Supper and the ultimate sacrifice of Christ. It's as if Melchizedek's story whispers the gospel long before it unfolds. Think about it: every time you take communion, you're participating in a sacred act that echoes all the way back to this mysterious king. Isn't that incredible? Melchizedek's blessing of Abraham holds immense significance. By blessing him, he affirms Abraham's divine calling and destiny. But more than that, Abraham's response, giving Melchizedek a tithe, sets a precedent for honoring God's representatives. It's a practical lesson on recognizing spiritual authority and expressing gratitude. How do you show appreciation for those who guide you spiritually? The book of Hebrews expands on his mystery, likening him to Christ in his eternal priesthood. Unlike the Levitical priests, Melchizedek's priesthood has no beginning or end. This timelessness is a reminder that Christ's intercession for us is forever. Have you ever considered what it means to have a priest who never stops advocating on your behalf? It's a thought that brings immense comfort. But there's also a challenge here. Melchizedek's story invites us to consider our own roles as spiritual leaders, whether in our families, workplaces, or communities. Just as he blessed Abraham, we're called to bless others. What's one way you can be a source of encouragement or peace to someone this week? Even a simple act can ripple into eternity. His connection to Christ also underscores the importance of recognizing God's hand in unexpected places. Melchizedek appears out of nowhere, yet his impact is monumental. It's a reminder to stay open to the divine interruptions in your life. Could there be someone or something in your path today that carries a message from God? Are you paying attention? As we leave this mysterious figure, his lessons linger: peace, intercession, and recognizing divine appointments. But the journey through the Bible's mysterious beings doesn't end here. Let's turn to one of the most fearsome yet purposeful figures, the Angel of Death, a being whose actions shook Egypt to its core. The Angel of Death, a figure both feared and revered, plays a pivotal role in one of the Bible's most dramatic narratives, the Exodus. Tasked with delivering God's final judgment upon Egypt, this angel swept through the land, sparing only the homes marked with lamb's blood. Imagine the tension of that night, with cries echoing in the distance as families clung to the promise of protection. It's a sobering reminder of God's power and mercy intertwined. The Passover, born from this event, is more than a historical moment, it's a profound symbol of deliverance. The lamb's blood, spread on doorposts, foreshadows Christ's ultimate sacrifice. Think about it: just as the Israelites were saved by the Lamb, so are we saved by the Lamb of God. This connection makes the Angel of Death story not one of fear, but of hope. Are you covered by that protection in your own life? The angel's mission also teaches us about obedience. The Israelites had a clear instruction: mark your doorposts with blood. It was simple, yet profound. Imagine someone debating whether to follow this command. How risky that choice would be. Sometimes, God's instructions may seem small or strange, but they carry life-changing significance. What's one seemingly minor step of obedience you might be avoiding today? This story is also a call to trust in God's timing. The plagues built up to this climactic moment, and the angel of death was the final act of liberation. Have you ever felt like God's deliverance was delayed? The Exodus reminds us that His timing is perfect, even when we can't see it. Perhaps you're in a season of waiting. Can you trust that the angel of death came precisely when the Israelites needed freedom? The angel's role also highlights the gravity of divine justice. It's not a popular topic, but it's essential. The angel of death wasn't acting independently, he was executing God's will, sparing the faithful and bringing judgment upon those who defied him. It's a stark reminder that our choices have eternal consequences. How often do we reflect on the weight of our decisions? Yet, this narrative isn't about punishment alone, it's about deliverance. The angel of death was a means to an end, the liberation of God's people. Think of the moments in your life when something hard led to something better. Maybe a loss opened a door to a new opportunity. What if God's hand was guiding you through that transition all along? For modern readers, the angel of death can symbolize the power of faith under pressure. That night in Egypt, faith wasn't just a belief, it was an action, marking the doorposts, gathering his families, and trusting God. What's one way you can turn your faith into action this week? Perhaps it's as simple as praying with someone or stepping out to serve. As we reflect on this fearsome figure, we see both the seriousness of God's justice and the depth of His mercy. But if you think the angel of death is intimidating, wait until we delve into the story of Lucifer, the once brilliant angel whose pride led to his ultimate downfall. Lucifer's story is one of brilliance turned to tragedy. Once a beautiful and exalted angel, his name means light bringer, reflecting his glorious beginnings. Imagine the splendor of a being crafted to lead heavenly worship, radiating beauty and wisdom. Yet, his pride, his desire to ascend above God Himself, became his downfall. It's a cautionary tale of how even the most gifted can fall prey to arrogance. The Bible paints a vivid picture of Lucifer's rebellion in Isaiah and Ezekiel. He declared, "I will ascend above the stars of God," a bold and reckless ambition. Think of it like a gifted leader who begins to believe they're bigger than the team they serve. That's Lucifer's story, a tragic shift from gratitude to entitlement. Have you ever noticed how unchecked pride can distort even the best intentions? After his fall, Lucifer became Satan, the adversary of God and humanity. His rebellion didn't just affect him, it brought chaos to creation. It's a sobering reminder that our choices ripple outward, impacting others in ways we may never foresee. Have you ever considered how your actions influence those around you, for good or for harm? Yet, even in his fall, Lucifer remains a crafty adversary. The Bible describes him as masquerading as an angel of light, deceiving many. It's a call to vigilance. Not everything that glitters is divine. Think about the decisions you make. Are they aligned with God's truth, or are they cloaked in half-truths that lead astray? Wisdom begins with discernment. Lucifer's rebellion also underscores the danger of discontentment. He wasn't satisfied with his God-given role, no matter how exalted it was. That dissatisfaction led to his ruin. It's a challenge for us to examine our own hearts. Are we grateful for where God has placed us, or are we constantly striving for more at the expense of our peace? Gratitude can be a powerful antidote to pride. Despite his cunning, Lucifer's story also highlights God's ultimate authority. Even in his rebellion, Satan is still subject to God's power. Think of Job's story. Satan could only act within the boundaries God allowed. This truth brings comfort. No matter how fierce the battle, God remains in control. Are you facing struggles today that feel insurmountable? Remember, the enemy's power is limited. Interestingly, Lucifer's fall serves as a mirror for humanity. His sin was pride, the very root of so many of our own failings. Yet, where he fell permanently, we are offered redemption through Christ. It's a sobering thought. How often do we echo Lucifer's pride in our daily lives? And more importantly, how can we choose humility instead? As we close this exploration of Lucifer, his story leaves us with both a warning and a hope. Pride leads to destruction, but humility opens the door to grace. And while his rebellion set a cosmic battle in motion, the Bible makes it clear, the victory is already won through Christ. But this isn't the end of the mystery. There's a bigger story at play. Let's step back and see how these mysterious beings weave into God's grand narrative. So, what will you do with all this knowledge? The Bible's most mysterious beings aren't just fascinating stories, they're reflections of God's power, creativity, and wisdom. Will you let these lessons inspire you to grow in faith, humility, and purpose? What areas of your life need a shift in perspective, a deeper trust in God, or a renewed sense of awe for His plan? Think about it, the 24 elders remind us of worship and humility. The wheels within wheels challenge us to see God's omnipresence in our lives. Behemoth and Leviathan stretch our understanding of His power, while cherubim and seraphim call us to holiness and transformation. Even figures like Melchizedek, the angel of death, and Lucifer teach us profound lessons about God's authority and grace. Which of these stories spoke to you most deeply? What will you change because of it? If you want to go deeper and truly make these lessons a part of your life, I've created a resource just for you. Christian Journey, Exploring the Bible in the 27 Steps, is packed with practical insights and actionable steps to bring these biblical truths into your daily routine. It's designed to guide you through a spiritual transformation, one step at a time. I've left the link pinned in the comments. Check it out if you feel ready to take the next step. And before you go, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. That way, you'll stay connected and continue exploring the wonders of the Bible together. Thanks for watching, and I can't wait to see how these mysteries unfold in your own journey of faith.